Joe, what's up, man?
Hey, Mitch, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Good to be back.
Good. Yes, I'm so happy to have you back. So for the listeners, I don't have a lot of returning guests, but when I do, it's because I know they're up to some cool things. So I'm excited to have another conversation with you, Joe. Why don't you update us on kind of what's new with you?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, thanks for having me on. I recently started a podcast production agency called St. Kolbe Studios. We're hopefully the premier sort of done for you podcast production agency in the Catholic space. We're targeting Catholic business owners, mainly in the for-profit sector, people who are looking to, you know, expand their reach, do so ethically, and steward the gifts and talent and money that they have, and just take their marketing to the next level with the podcast to just expand their reach and hopefully gain some trust with people is sort of a first step. I mean, attention's harder to come by than ever just because we have so many options now. So the team and I think that podcasts are a great way to do it, and we hope to be proven right.
Definitely. Well, very cool. I'm super pumped for you, like especially having gotten to chat with you kind of prior to this.
Mhm.
How did this idea finally come to fruition or formulate? Because
Yeah.
clearly you've been an expert in this space, but like how did it come to this point, I guess?
Yeah. I mean, this is something I've been thinking about for maybe the better part of a year at this point. It was partially just looking for. So I've been producing audio in one form or another since about 2019. I started in broadcast radio, and looking around and trying to find, well, where do I fit in? I'd freelanced for a long time. I'd worked a couple jobs in between freelancing and now, and it just some of us aren't cut out for it, for better or worse. That I'm certainly one of them, and so I wanted to look around and see, what isn't being done or what isn't being done in the space that I'm looking to do it, or could just be done better. Um, and I landed on running this podcast production operation that generally targets Catholic business owners. I mean, there's a lot of great producers out there, and there's a lot of great Catholic marketing agencies and things like that. But there didn't seem to be one that targeted Catholics in the for-profit space. A lot of them are, ministries and nonprofits, 501(c)(3s, which are great, but there wasn't really anyone, at least at a organizational level, targeting Catholic business owners and trying to help them run good businesses, feed their families, get their message out there, and live out the gospel in the for-profit sector. There's
Right.
plenty of great people doing it in the nonprofit, but we saw that there was a need in the for-profit, and we're we're giving it a try. We're hoping that it'll turn into something.
Right. So for you, it's not necessarily like working with Catholic businesses, right? It would
Mhm.
be Catholic
Correct.
business owners, so it could be any kind of business.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing. There's When I was coming out of college, and I think a lot of us who were in our 20s probably experienced this, 20s and 30s, I'd guess. If you go to a Catholic college, you get like a theology, philosophy, liberal arts general degree. The sort of main through route is to go into the nonprofit sector or go into working for the church, which I mean, I suppose that's the same, but whether a secular nonprofit or the church proper or sort of a religious nonprofit, there wasn't a ton of push to go into the world of business because it's sort of seen as, well, profit is bad because, we have so many bad examples of people making a lot of money, claiming they're Catholic, claiming no religion at all, and just not doing it well. That I think we kind of just assume that, well, we have to exist in the nonprofit space now. There's no other way, and that was certainly what I believed for a while. But I started thinking about it over the last couple of years, and there's a lot of, I've been fortunate to meet a lot of people on LinkedIn and things like that, and seeing them, who people who are Catholic doing really exciting things in just the secular business sphere, and you get kind of a light clicked on. I was like, oh wow, yeah, you can do this. You can live out your faith and make a fair amount of money to feed your family, live well, and all these things. Like, these aren't incongruent in the way that I thought they were. And so now we're just looking. I mean, we love working with Catholic specific businesses, but really, it's just people who share our values, no matter the sort of sector they're in. That's where we're going.
Definitely. Well, and like, I mean, like you're alluding to, like Catholic business owners, whether it's a Catholic business or not, like do and should run their business differently. Like the way that
Yeah.
they approach business and the way that they, you know, manage employees like should look different. Why did you pick why focus on podcasting specifically, and why should a Catholic business owner start a podcast?
Yeah, I mean, to some degree, it's just this is what I was already doing, and it was the path of least resistance where I could just go, I've been doing this for a long time. I can probably start out and see if I can make a business out of it. But beyond that, I really believe in the medium of podcasting. I think it's the best medium out there for not just building trust in a marketing sense, but just for having really good conversations, really interesting, substantive, debates and dialogues and all these things, and just informing people in a way that, I mean, and television certainly can't, because you're in 30-minute segments with 6 minutes commercials. YouTube can to some degree, but it's not really the medium. Although we are seeing podcasts go on YouTube, so to some degree, in as far as podcasts are going onto YouTube, it is also a medium that can do that. But I think podcasting is just the best medium for having contextual dialogues. I suppose is probably the best way to put it, because you need that long form to really dive into the ideas and get into the nuances of what you're trying to say, instead of just going for 22, 23 minutes, and it's 4 minutes a segment. It's kind of quick, it's kind of clippy. Podcasts just have so much space to be able to explore ideas, and it's a medium I fell in love with a number of years ago, and I really think it is the best medium for people building trust with their audience, as well as just doing really cool things and just having interesting conversations with their peers, people they wouldn't otherwise talk to, whomever. It's an exciting medium. I'm really excited to see where it goes. I'm excited to be a part of it.
Totally. And I obviously agree. I enjoy podcasting. I think one of the biggest benefits too, especially for a business owner, and I'm sure you see this as well, is like, so it's audio, it can be video, which everything is so video driven on social media. So it's like the easiest way to get like a message out, and have a lot of content from it. Like if you sit down, like this podcast, for example, you sit down and record a podcast, and after the fact, you clip that up and you use that on various social media channels. It gives you so much content. And it just simply from a conversation. Yeah. And so I don't know. Yeah, I would completely agree. I feel like it's just such a no-brainer, especially with like, if it's a Catholic business, if it's a Catholic business owner who is trying to grow on LinkedIn, for example, like LinkedIn's pushing video heavy right now.
Yeah, fairly recent change for LinkedIn.
Yeah, what do you see as opportunity there?
Yeah, I mean, people have very mixed feelings about this, of course. I've seen when LinkedIn pushed more video centric. I'll go to LinkedIn specifically for now. When LinkedIn became more video centric, really within the last just few months, and it was, of course, it was trending that way. But when like the TikTok style, like short form vertical content dropped, people kind of lost their minds. At least some people liked it. But as social media goes on, everything just kind of gets a little more similar. It's sort of just homogeneity, the state of being homogenous, whatever it is. Things get more alike as they go down. So while cars are the same now, in the 90s they didn't. I think social medias are getting, they still have their niche, and I'm not saying you shouldn't be on each of them, or depending on who you are, some of them at least. But they are getting a little more similar. The strategy is different, of course, but the structure is the same. I mean, it's all going vertical, it's all going short form, which I mean, you can decry that and say, oh, this is the worst, this is the death of culture. Maybe it is, I don't know. But like, they are all getting similar enough where it is actually simpler to take a podcast, or even just like talking head 10-minute sort of video, chop it down for socials, and you can put it up on each one a little more efficiently. And I think in that they're getting similar. Like, as they get more similar, that get a little more streamlined from sort of a larger scale social media strategy. I'm trying to, be on LinkedIn and, X and TikTok and YouTube Shorts and whatnot, Instagram. It is a little simpler. And I think it's an opportunity if you look at it the right way. And as much as I'm tempted to just kind of be an old head about it and be like, oh, I'm a purist. Back in my day, like everything was horizontal and I miss it. And I do miss it to some degree. I'm 27, I'm not that old. But like that is the way it's going. And I think there is a really good opportunity here to expand your reach with not a whole lot more work as social medias get closer. So I think there's good and bad, but I think if you look at it the right way, I think you're going into an exciting time in terms of like efficiency of your social media marketing.
Definitely. So if I'm if I'm a Catholic business owner listening to this right now, and I'm sold on the idea of like needing a podcast for my business, but I don't really know like why, like what I would do. Do you have some examples of podcasts you're working on now, and like make it super tangible? I'm curious, like, what's the business and the product or the service, and what's the podcast focusing on? And how does that actually like drive revenue, for example, for that business, or if it correlates? Like, I'm curious kind of on that. Yeah.
That's so this, you've hit on something there about revenue and if it correlates. It sometimes, well, the answer is yes, it does correlate. But I think a mistake people make is assuming, and this is sort of just bad sales, and like anyone who's in sales and is good at it knows this instinctively. The idea that it has to be one-to-one. I put up a podcast and I get money from it. It's sometimes yes, you can do that. You can make ad revenue, you can make direct sales off of it. But for the most part, and again, anyone who's been in sales knows this, that like your sales cycle sometimes is 3 months long, 6 months long, 2 years long even. And you may not make direct tangible sales off of your podcast, at least not for the most part. But a lot of it is indirect. It is building up the trust with your audience. And maybe they don't convert for a year and you don't really know it's because of the podcast. Like, you can't prove that. It is this is the thing we run into all the time. It's really tough to quantify how much money you're making off of a podcast if you're not doing ads, you're not doing direct sales. And I haven't solved that problem yet. I don't really know the exact way to explain it, other than it's non-linear. Like, it just takes time. You have to just be there, but time in the market beats time in the market and all that. Like, you just have to be there for long enough time and you will eventually get sales off of it. And so to your question about examples, I did this. We finished up a few episodes for a podcast recently called Making Every Class Catholic with Dr. Brett Salkel. He's an educator, and he goes around doing what the name of the podcast says, Making Every Class Catholic. Like, he has these seminars and he'll speak with teachers and try to equip them to teach every class from a Catholic lens. And he used that podcast to move people from the podcast to like a closed community that he has, like an online community, like a membership community. That's the term I'm looking for. And he makes $100 a year off of a membership or something like that. And I mean, that's not proprietary. It's on his website. I can say that. And he uses it. We helped him use it. Now he uses it himself to move people from the podcast somewhere else. Rarely outside of ad spend, or outside of sponsors rather, are you going to make a ton of direct money off of a podcast. For the most part, I mean, large scale podcasts do. If you run like Flagrant or Theo Von's podcast, something like that, yeah, sure, you make a ton of money off of that. But for the most of us, it's indirect, and it is a way to move people from the podcast. Some people don't like the top of funnel marketing analogy. Jury's out on it for me, but the sort of top of funnel, like people start up, they might find you on a podcast, or realistically where they're going to find you is a short form clip from your podcast on YouTube. I've never watched a full episode of Games with Names, but Julian Edelman's podcast, but I've seen a ton of those clips, and I enjoy the podcast. I have a favorable opinion of the podcast because of the clips that I've seen. I also grew up a New England Patriots fan, so it's a bit of a homer thing, but you see these clips, which is that top of funnel, whether or not you like that term. and you move to maybe the full podcast or maybe to the website. I mean, you have links in your bio or links in the show notes rather. You are moving people from the podcast elsewhere 95% of the time. You're not going to make direct sales off of the podcast outside of, unless you're running the podcast as a business. Like I run the podcast to make money off of the podcast, which some people do successfully. But for the most part, it's a vehicle. It is your most important marketing vehicle, but it's a vehicle, and it's getting people in the door and then moving them somewhere else. Now that's what we encourage people to do, is to treat it that way instead of as a sort of money printing machine itself.
Right. Well, I think that just touched on a really important point about him is like, you're right. Like, I do feel like social media and podcasting and just content in general kind of all have that same issue where people kind of judge it where it's like, okay, if you're bad at social media, you're just selling through your content or through your podcast. Like if you're good at it, you're providing value, and that's building brand. So like, yeah, I 100% agree. Like podcasting for the majority of us is for building brand. It's for amassing attention or building an audience, delivering educational value or entertainment value. And you're right, like it's not like, a lot of people are like, well, how is this gonna translate to sales? There is really no easy way to say that other than just looking at examples and knowing, well, if you're a good marketer and you're able to provide value, like people want to hear what you have to say, and people kind of stay inside your ecosystem. And then those ones who are really your target audience do move up to the point where they're like, they purchase your course or they purchase your product or service. Like, that's the way I feel like people have to look at it. And like, as it stands today, a lot more people are realizing that, but there's still like, I personally still get emails and different things about like, well, I just don't see the benefit or value in social media. It's like, we're always trying to place a value on something. Does it directly monetize for me? And it's just like, no, it's not, but if you're willing to play the long game and the brand, it's about branding and marketing, then it'll pay off with the consistency.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so much in business has changed over the last 20 years, but one thing that has stood the test of time and will stand the test of time is people would rather do business with people they like. It's simple as that. I would rather give money to my friends. And for most of us, who work for somebody else, I mean, maybe you have a side hustle or you have your own small business, something like that. But for the most part, these friends, maybe it's a little sad to say, but it's like, it is parasocial in a lot of ways. I want to do, and maybe we can reframe that to like, people want to do business with people they have a relationship with. Maybe we don't call it friends if we want to get, not too liberal with the definition of friends. Like people want to do business with people they have relationships with. The way to build relationships is to, put your own content out there so people can hear you say things that, one, establish you as an authority in the space. Like I can get on this podcast and I can say, hey, you need this microphone, this set of headphones, something like that. And that helps establish me as an authority. And then down the line, I talk about what I do. I talk about, my journey to get here or something like that. Or, how my running a business has impacted my relationship with my family and how I, carve out time to make sure, like we've got a baby on the way, like how I carve out time to make sure that, my wife and my, soon to be born daughter have a proper amount of my attention and things like that. And that's what people relate to, even if you don't run a business or something like that. Everybody can relate to, I want to spend time with my family. I have other things that take my time, whether that's work or, your side hustle, your hobbies, medical issues, good or bad. It doesn't really matter. There is something out there that also wants your time. So it doesn't have to be one-to-one in the sense of, I say this thing, you have this exact experience, and now you relate to me. I say this thing, and you have a similar or adjacent experience, or you just, you like the way I say things. It can be, I mean, that's how personality-driven podcasts work. People just like I run a podcast called Catching Foxes that has been running for like a decade now. And the two of them just chat. It's just elder millennials talking about stuff elder millennials like. Like that's the entirety. I mean, that's a bit reductive. They wouldn't mind. I know them well. But it's just personality-driven. So yeah, sure, some of those are that. And if you want to run that, fantastic. It's a ton of fun. And it's mostly... you can make money off of it, but I think it's mostly just kind of a passion project, just something you do it because you enjoy it. But I think the biggest thing, if I can tell prospective, podcast owners anything, it's just podcasts are non-linear, and you can track clicks and things like that. You can track, show note link clicks, and that can give you some amount of just, kind of a sense of at least what's going on, what kind of traction you're getting. But it's non-linear and it takes time. Like, it will just take you a while unless you happen to get lucky. Sometimes with algorithms how they are now, you might be able to pop off in a week. Maybe. You probably won't, but maybe. But it is ultimately non-linear, and it is a game of patience in what all sales is. It has been since, the beginning of sales, and it will always be. It is ultimately patience. And if you have the right mindset, like, you can really succeed running a podcast and using it as sort of the core of your marketing.
Definitely. Yeah, 100% agree. I think that's extremely well said. When is your kid due?
She is mid-June, June 14th, tentatively.
Nice. Okay.
That's at least the plan. So we got time. Yeah, I got an OB appointment later today, so hopefully I'll be able
That's
to
exciting.
get everything done in time to make that. But yeah, it's an exciting.
Is this your first one?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
First
That's
one.
exciting. Yeah. How are you? What are you looking forward to? And like, what are you doing? I guess to be able to, as a business owner, and and preparing for that, and like that moment, what are you doing?
Trying to make as much money as possible. Oh man. Yeah. No. It's an interesting place to be. I am trying to make as much money as possible. StKolbestudios.com. Click the link and hire us. But it's been a really nice experience in that it's kind of terrifying. Not even the having the kid part, but just the like running a business and having to make enough money to, so we get to take her home at the end of the day. But it is this really nice, even though it's not very fun at all, requirement of surrender. Like I can't run this myself. God just has to, put me in the right place and put the right people in my life. And, I'm going to make enough money off of this. I have no idea how, but like, there's so many times along the way that I've wanted to scrap the idea and just been like, I can't do it. And I made it here. So I'm like, if God didn't want me to do it, and I've been along the way, I've been like, God, if you don't want me to do this, I need you to just like stop me. Like just cut it off, crumble it. And we're still here. So I don't know how the money's going to come in, but it's just been one of those things that I've seen, in the last, especially over the last like year or so since getting married, just sort of the hand of God in things that if I just step back and, submit to his will and do the best that I can with, what I have to do, it all works out, which is very comforting, but also terrifying, like all at once. Like, I know it's going to work, but I have no idea how. So, I think trying to just remember that, like, very like deliberately has been a big thing in the kind of preparation process, and also just accepting that I'm never going to be ready. Like, that's the same way with marriage. People who are married will understand that. Like, you can go through marriage prep and you can do all that and you can date for 5 years. So, like, you're never going to be quite ready. You'll be more ready with, some preparation, of course, but just the acceptance of I'm never going to be ready. I'm never going to have enough money. I'm never going to have enough time. Like, I'm never going to be successful enough to feel like I'm fine. So at some point I just have to do it and trust that it will be okay. That's jarring, but freeing all at once. It's a weird sort of contradiction, but I think that's where I'm at.
Yeah, no, 100%. That's super exciting, and I love the way you put that. What's the website again?
StKolbestudios.com, all spelled out. St.
Kolbe.
Kolbe Studios is Maximilian Kolbe.
Perfect. Okay, so I'll make sure to link that. Joe, any final words?
Oh man, thanks for having me again. This has been a ton of fun. Yeah, if you have a podcast, if you know of somebody who wants one, give us a shout. Quick plug: we are giving away for our first 5 like retainer clients. We are giving away podcast studios, like full podcast studio setups, like $2,000 worth a year. We'll come out to you. We'll set it up. Basically, what we're trying to do is lower the barrier to entry as much as possible. We know that there are business owners out there who want to market this way. There are people out there who have really cool stories to tell and are really dynamic on camera, on mic, and just really charismatic. And we're trying to make sure that money isn't a barrier for people to have a really high quality podcast. So the first 5 retainer clients who hit us up, sign a 12-month retainer, and just go, all right, we trust you. Take us where we need to go. We're handing a full free podcast studio. So stkolbestudios.com, give us a shout, and let's see if we can tell a cool story.
Cool. That's quite a deal. So I would, I mean, if you're thinking about it, I would recommend that if you're listening. So Joe, thank you so much. Yes, I'm excited to see where this business takes you. Definitely want to keep in touch with you, and good luck with the baby in June.
Thank you. Yeah, Mitch, thanks for having me. This has been a ton of fun.
Definitely. God bless. We'll see you.
Yes, sir.